We look at the power in golf with the Ryder Cup now firmly ensconced in Europe, and they're winning convincingly now. It has shifted, hasn't it? The Americans no longer dominate the sport.
No, they don't dominate, but I mean, I watched that Ryder Cup quite closely. A lot of the matches went down to the 18th. I could easily have seen 5 matches going the other way. I mean, it all came down to one hole 5 times. Europeans won most of them. The Americans could easily have won that Ryder Cup, and yet on paper it looks like a fairly convincing win for Europe. The previous 2 went down, went down to the final match. So the Europeans are playing well, but I wouldn't say the Americans are a diminishing power. I mean, that's just the way the games fall sometimes. I still think there's a lot of depth in American golf.
But it's certainly a worldwide sport now, isn't it? We're seeing French golfers, and South Africans are quite strong these days, and they're coming from everywhere.
Yes, and Asian golf has just rocketed. I mean, first of all, the Asian women dominate the women's tour, so that's huge, and more good male golfers coming from Asia as well, and not just Japan either. Korea, India, Malaysia. So it's becoming a more worldwide phenomenon. I suppose it hasn't taken off really in Africa, except for Southern Africa, and there's still not a vast number of world-class golfers coming from South America, but it's definitely a true world sport.
And being back at the Olympics will help it even further.
Yes, the profile kick it will get from being in the Olympics in Rio will be amazing. Golfers will be breaking their necks to get into that tournament, and once it's been in the Olympics, future golfers will want to be part of that as well.
Not too much pressure on Lydia there either, because she'll be a medal hope for us. Genuine.
Yeah, she will, but you know, there's only 3 medals and there's probably 15 or 18 really good female golfers. So, I mean, she may win a medal, but she may finish 9th and still play really well.
All right, we talked about the shift in power with golf, perhaps, or not, as the case may be, but let's look at tennis. The US Open, 2 new names to the general public, the big 4 missing. Does it mean that their day is coming to an end?
Well, obviously it is. I mean, because no 4 go on forever. And obviously Federer's nearer the end than the start. Nadal's got injury problems. Murray's coming back from a really bad injury break and has never quite got back to where he was. So only Djokovic has had a really solid year and won a major. Federer's had a really good year, but still has not won a major, and you still wonder if he actually will. But it was great. I mean, I'd never seen anything like what Cilic played in the US Open. Those last 3 matches where he beat 3 top 10 players, wasn't even pushed further than 6-4 really, and he looked like he could have beaten anyone. I mean, he was hitting every ball as hard as you can hit a ball, and they were all going in. So he was formidable. And Nishikori beating Djokovic the way he did, fantastic as well. It's got to be good for men's tennis.
Nishikori reminded me about Lewis's run at Wimbledon. It's spent force probably by the time he got to the final, but did a wonderful job getting there.
Yeah, I think Nishikori could have won the final if he'd played someone just playing a normal game of tennis. What Cilic was doing was, I mean, he was serving bombs, like 2 to 3 aces a game, and on return of serve he was just teeing off, and they were all going in. I mean, I'm not surprised that he beat Federer the way he beat him, 3-3 and 4. He was that much better than everyone else in the tournament. If he'd played Djokovic and played the same, he would have beaten him the same. That was sort of superhuman tennis. I'm really interested to see if he ever does that again.
It's funny, we all talk about Federer past it, whatever, and when's he going to retire. I mean, he's getting to the semi-finals, quarter-finals of all the majors, all the Grand Slam events, and as you say, if we had someone getting that close, we'd be celebrating.
Oh, he was within 2 points of winning Wimbledon this year. I mean, he's number 3 in the world, and he's very close to number 2 at the moment on the rankings, actually. So he's great. I think the trouble with Federer is he's matched against the Federer of about 7 years ago, who was just unbeatable. That's the only thing against Federer is what you're comparing him to. If he was anybody else, you'd say he's had a sublime year.
All right, overnight, this is as we record it, a new marathon record. Somebody's broken 2:03 for the first time ever. It's astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound that fast until you watch it live or try and jog beside someone who's running a marathon in that sort of time. I mean, they're running faster than most people could run 400 metres, and they're doing that for over 2 hours. I still think we're not as far away as you think from a sub-2 hour marathon. And when you think that as great a marathon runner as Abibi Bikila was running 2 hours 12, 2 hours 15, it's incredible what they're doing now.
Well, I did a quick bit of research, and I don't know, were you a journalist in '74, something like that?
Just starting out.
The time then was 2:09, and that was 40 years ago. So they've taken 7 seconds in 40 years. So what's your prediction? So minutes, I should say. How many years do you think before we can break that magical barrier?
Not that long. Could be a year. I mean, I think they're close. If you got 2 or 3 of them running really well in one day and really desperate to win and very good conditions, I think it's possible. Incidentally, that 2:09, I'm a bit suspicious of us if it was Derek Clayton. I think it was a short course.
Okay, I won't argue with that. Amazingly, perhaps or surprisingly, the women's record, 2:15, it hasn't been broken since 2:03. That's a long time for a record to be standing.
I think that's Paula Radcliffe's record, and that was a bit of a freak time. She took quite a lot off the best when she said it. So I think they're waiting for the rest of the women to catch up to that time. I wouldn't be surprised if once somebody goes to 2:14, it quickly goes down to about 2:12. I wouldn't be surprised about that. If you're looking at women's records that haven't been broken, Tom, carry on looking at Florence Griffith Joyner. That was 1988, and no one's got within 5 metres of it yet.
I think we know why, though, don't we?
Yeah, that's right.
And I think Val Adams still has to throw another metre or so to break the women's shopper record.
She would not actually be in the top 10 on 1979 ranking lists.
What can you do about that? Should they do something about that? Is there a line that has to be drawn? But I suppose you've got to be careful of not eliminating some people who are genuine.
No, I think you just need to put an asterisk beside the whole 10 of them, really, because it's farcical.
We haven't touched the All Blacks yet. The record's impressive with the odd draw here occasionally, but mostly they're on track.
They're fantastic. I mean, most of the time when they play fairly well, they win easily, and then they play very well sometimes. I think they're terrific, and they always seem to have another player who can step in and play just as well. Look at the new second five. I mean, you think, gosh, Ma'a Nonu's not there. That's going to be tough. Come up with someone even better. The wingers, Savia looks as good as Jonah Lomu looked to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're making comparisons, and I thought it was unfair to start with, but now fashioning his own record, isn't he? And has improved his skills across the board.
Yeah, I saw him doing some things against Argentina, chip kicking and that sort of thing, which I wasn't seeing Jonah doing. You automatically compare him to Jonah because he's a big guy and so on, but and Jonah was pretty hard to stop when he was going. But this guy seems to me it's possible he could be a better all-round player in the end.
So depth in most positions, I suppose there's always going to be one or two where you're not, but that's just the way football is, isn't it?
Yeah, if it was me, I mean, this is just me, I think McCaw would be better suited these days to playing on the blind side. I don't think he's blindingly fast now. He's not a greyhound. He's obviously very canny. He knows where to be. I think he'd be an ideal blindside flanker, actually.
And that's the transition that Michael Jones made later in the piece and was equally successful there.
Yeah, and there's no reason why McCaw couldn't do that. It's possible he'd be filling a good hole there, and we might have better open side backup.
And your assessment of Hansen, I mean, you're not blaming the Wellington coach for their losses. Are you crediting him with this continuance in good form?
Yeah, he's been part of that selection panel for a decade that's overseen this very good era in New Zealand rugby, and he's selecting well. He's putting good young players in, so good on him. Pretty nice to have those players at your disposal. I'd like to see Hansen coaching Japan and see what his record was like and find out how good a coach he really was.
We did notice, I think, in the media how he changed personality. Once he got it out from under Graham Henry, a bit more outgoing, a bit more affable, less perhaps cynical.
I think when you're an assistant coach and you're doing a press conference, all you're trying to do is keep it ticking over, sort of toe the party line. You're not trying to stand out and make a name for yourself, so you're not imposing your personality. I'd spoken to Hansen a couple of times and I found him really funny actually, but that wasn't quite the guy I was seeing in those press conferences then. He's just a bit more free to be his own man now.